Welcome into the PFF College Football Show for the first grade release show of the 2025 season. Max Chadwick alongside Dalton Wasserman here, breaking down a massive Week 0 game in Ireland with number 22 Iowa State beating number 17 Kansas State 24-21, securing a major Big 12 victory in a wide open conference right now. I want to remind you guys what we're doing here on the grade release show, which will usually be Sunday mornings throughout the season. This is kind of just a later one this week, but it'll be on Sunday mornings throughout the season. What we're doing here, we're going to release the grades for all of the biggest games during the week of college football. Also go over the stat that told the story in all of these games, the most impressive part of all these games, just kind of break it down what happened in all of the biggest games in college football. And this is obviously the biggest game of Week 0. So, since this is the grade release show, let's release the grades for Iowa State and Kansas State in the first game of the year, starting off with the victorious Iowa State Cyclones. Their highest graded player was their safety, Marcus Neal Jr., with an 84.4 PFF grade. Cornerback Jontez Williams, who was a top 10 corner for us entering the year, played really well with a 75.2 grade. Another top 10 player at his position, Dominique Orange, with a 70.4 PFF grade at D-tackle. Carson Hansen, the running back, with a 69.8 grade. Offensive tackle James Neal III, 69.6. And Rocco Becht with a very solid 76 grade in the victory. Let's go over to Kansas State with their highest grade player, starting off with offensive tackle John Pastor, 86.9. Linebacker Austin Romaine, a top 5 linebacker for us in the country entering the year. He played really well with a 77.4 PFF grade. Safety Wesley Fair, 75.2. Edge rusher Chidi Obiazor with a 69.5 grade. Center Sam Hecht, 68.5. This one might have some people confused, Dalton. Avery Johnson, 85.6, the second highest graded player for Kansas State in this game, and much higher grade than Rocco Becht was in this game too. What I want to say for this is Avery Johnson's first half was not pretty at all. I believe it was about a 55 passing grade in that one. The second half, he had like a 90 passing grade. It was a really good half from Avery Johnson. That's why the grade looks like that right there. It was still a really good day for Avery Johnson, but I get it. Just by the eye test in the first half, he didn't look pretty, but he played a lot better in the second half.
The ball placement was inconsistent, even on some completions that he did have, but he made especially 2 big touchdown throws that he needed to, right? The one to Jace Brown and the sluggo that he just absolutely torched the defender on, and then the safety from Iowa State making the mistake on the rollout to the left that put the Wildcats back within 3 points here.
And some good rushing plays, too, like rushing touchdown and everything.
Yeah, I thought he moved up in the pocket well. The big thing is that Iowa State with the 3-man rush, there were a handful of blitzes in this game, but not too many. With the 3-man rush that Iowa State's always bringing, Avery Johnson was a little more patient back there in the pocket, stepped up when he needs to. Thought there was a couple of throws, especially over the middle, that he stayed patient, got to his second and third read, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't quite enough to beat this Iowa State defense, and that's the third straight victory in this series for the Cyclones.
So tell me the stat that told the story in this Iowa State victory.
So for me, it's actually the fact that Avery Johnson had to have the solid, especially second half that he did throwing the ball. It's just not, it's something we've talked about the last couple of years. It's not the way Kansas State wants to win football games. Iowa State, look, this game was ugly between the weather, between some of the turnover with personnel on offense for both of these teams. Iowa State losing the receivers, Kansas State losing DJ Giddens, then losing Dylan Edwards with a twisted ankle on the punt return that he muffed early in the game. He didn't play an offensive snap in this game. Offensively, yes, Avery Johnson had a good day, but this was not Kansas State's plan. It's never Kansas State's plan to come out and be a throw first team, right? So you look at the stat for me, Iowa State gave up 1 run on the day longer than 11 yards. There's some official box scores that are weird about the run with the Joe Jackson fumble, because he fumbled that at like 10, 11 yards, but they officially gave him 17 because he fumbled forward. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But either way, I'm going with it. 1 run longer than 11 yards, Max, okay? And that 1 run was Jace Brown gaining 33 in the first quarter as a Wildcat player. So their running backs and Avery Johnson did not have a run longer than 11 yards in this game. You take out that 1 carry, and their main ball carriers, Avery Johnson and the running backs, 25 carries for 83 yards. It's just not going to cut it, right? I mean, you're talking 3.3, 3.4 yards per carry. Any day that Kansas State and their primary ball carriers have 3.3 yards per carry, they're going to lose. They're not designed to win like that. They're designed to get ahead, be front runners, run the football. And I just think Iowa State, as a team and as they've done the last few years, just such a fantastic job of containing this running game. They've done it now for 4 years in a row. You want this? Kansas State running backs the last 4 years against Iowa State, okay? So that's 3 Iowa State wins, and in 2021, a game that Kansas State won 10-9. Kansas State running backs in those 4 games have a 70 rushing grade, 3.7 yards per carry, not great, only 2 touchdowns, and a minus .134 EPA per rush. If you took that out over a whole season, that's like bottom 20 in the country as a team. Iowa State, and again, I said in the preview, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that they run a 3-man front and a 3-3, and they've got like a smaller, more athletic, fast kind of defense. It doesn't make a ton of sense when you think about, okay, you would think Kansas State, their offensive line, the way they run the football, that's a good matchup for Kansas State. It's not. They have just found a way repeatedly to stop the run and make whoever the quarterback is at the time, Will Howard, now Avery Johnson, the last 2, they have found a way to make Kansas State beat them left-handed, the way they don't want to beat them, throwing the ball, falling behind early in games. Kansas State with a lot of self-inflicted wounds in this game too, but at the end of the day, Iowa State, better than any other team on Kansas State's schedule, they know how to stop this team running the football, and again, it won the day.
So I'll just go out of order here because my most impressive part of the game was the Iowa State run defense in this one. In this game specifically, Kansas State averaged negative 0.56 EPA per run. That was their worst in a performance in a game since 2021 against Oklahoma State. So it has been 4 years since Kansas State was this inefficient running the football in a game before. Really, you made Kansas State rely completely on Avery Johnson. And yes, he did perform well, especially in the second half of this game. But that is, like Dalton just said, that is not the way Kansas State wants to win football games. They want to win with Avery Johnson playing a complementary role as a runner and as a passer of play action. When your run game is this non-existent and you have to rely on him as a drop-back passer, it could be a long night, and it really was a long day for that Kansas State offense. Kansas State running backs combined for 17 carries for 54 yards total. Now, granted, your star offensive player outside of Avery Johnson is running back Dylan Edwards, and he didn't even have a single offensive touch in this game because the first touch of the game he had was the muff punt, which he got hurt on, and he didn't return to the game from there. So that you have to keep that in mind too. But even with Joe Jackson out there and everyone else, Iowa State was doing a great job of just stopping Kansas State running backs. Avery Johnson accounted for all 21 of Kansas State's points, and because he had a rushing touchdown too and just 2 passing touchdowns. He also accounted for 80% of Kansas State's yards in this game, too. That is just way too much for your young sophomore quarterback, or a redshirt sophomore quarterback, I should say, to be relying on right there. Iowa State defense got a stop on 17 of 25 rushing attempts. Basically, a successful play on 17 out of 25 rushes for Kansas State in that game for Iowa State. 7 tackles for loss or no gain on those 24 attempts as well. Caleb Bacon, who was one of the best run-defending linebackers in college football 2 years ago, barely played last year due to an injury. He came back with a vengeance in this game in Ireland. 3 run defense stops in that game. Safety Marcus Neal Jr., who was the highest graded player for Iowa State, he had 2 run defense stops too. And then Dominique Orange was dominant in the middle. You cannot run a 3-man front like Iowa State does unless you have big 95, a dominant nose tackle who's been this good for a very long time, despite people telling you different. He is a really good player on that Iowa State defense. You cannot be this successful in run defense with a 3-man front unless you have a dominant player like Dominique Orange who can eat up multiple gaps in the run game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is why, for me, the most impressive, and it really goes back to the last 3 or 4 years, is Iowa State defensive coordinator John Haycock. I mean, honestly, very quietly every year, this is one of the more solid defenses we have all the way around in college football. They're designed to cover. It's a 3-3. They've got a lot of DBs on the field. But when it comes to a matchup like this, I really think it's him and his influence and his ability, Haycock's ability to get the team to play team football. What you see is a lot of sacrificing on the D-line, a lot of slants so linebackers can stun in behind them. They rally to the football with all of the speed that they have. I mean, when you watch this Iowa State run defense, it feels like there's never just one guy guy making a tackle. There's 3, 4, 5, 6 guys rallying to the football because that's how it has to be done. And you mentioned it. If you're going to beat a team that's slanting and stunning and moving around as much in the front as a team like this out of this front, generally the answer is then you got to run right down the pipe. You got to run right through the A gaps. Just honestly, it's just cut the fat out. Just run right at them, right between the tackles. The problem is, like you mentioned, when you have big number 95 in there,
big citrus,
taking all those double teams, and he's doing the things he can do to just clog up lanes and occupy blockers. It's such a big deal. If you can occupy double teams and they're not moving you off the ball, then they can't run between the tackles either. And Iowa State's the faster football team, so you're not, especially without Dylan Edwards. You can feel the lack of speed without Dylan Edwards out there, especially on the bad track with it raining. So John Haycock, I mean, it feels like every single time they play Kansas State, he wins the battle, and he wins it with the play calling. He wins it with the creativity in the front six. Caleb Bacon and a healthy set of linebackers were flying to the football, right? It wasn't always perfect, but man, oh man, Iowa State, that's the thing about their defense. They play such great team defense that the production actually it ends up being better than any of the individual players. We know they've had a run of getting defensive players into the NFL, but just the culture that they have here, the play calling, the creativity from John Haycock. It's not a scenario with Iowa State against Kansas State where, we just line up in their gaps and blow them off the ball and this and that. It's really creative. This guy's flying in all different directions. And then even the balance. I mean, if you told him, okay, listen, Avery Johnson's going to have a good day, but we're going to hold this team to 116 rushing yards, he'll take that 10 times out of 10. Because, again, it's not how Kansas State wants to win football games. And this is the problem I have with Kansas State and why I didn't pick them to be in the Big 12 title game. When they're in their comfort zone, they're great. No question. When they get out of it, I mean, you even think back to the loss last year, say against Houston, right? Houston stopped the run. Everything got uncomfortable, low-scoring game, lost a tight game, right? This is just what happens with Kansas State because they don't have multiple ways to win on offense. And yes, Avery Johnson at the end of the day, especially in the second half, had a good day by the numbers throwing the ball. But an opponent's going to be comfortable with that. Iowa State is so comfortable with Kansas State throwing into their secondary, and really the two big plays were just big Iowa State mistakes from their safeties, right? It's just not going to consistently happen like that for Kansas State. They have to get out ahead. They have to run the football. And against Iowa State, right now, they just can't do it.
Yeah, John Haycock, not only is he a great defensive coach, but he is a mastermind for what this kind of scheme they run. He's really one of the pioneers of that 3-3-5 defense for Iowa State. And one thing that Iowa State does differently in their 3-3-5 defense than other defenses do if they run that scheme, he has 3 safeties on the field, not 3 cornerbacks. Usually when you have a 5, obviously 5 defensive backs out there, you have 2 outside corners, a slot corner, 2 safeties. He runs a lot of 3 safeties, and Dalton, in run defense, the more safeties on the field than corners, it's going to be better too. You see Marcus Neal Jr. out there being a dominant run defender for Iowa State. So having 3 safeties in the field, not 3 corners in this odd dime package, that's what makes this John Haycock defense just so good against run defense when you really don't think it should be that good.
It's that guy like Neal that's the middle of those 3 guys. We talked about this during Ohio State's national title run with Caleb Downs because they went to more of this late in the year in that national title run where Caleb Downs, he's kind of like a deeper off-the-ball middle linebacker, right? And that's the same role that Marcus Neal played in this game. When you're in those looks, it's not that guy's not there to help.
Yeah.
It's just that you have him further back and you have 3 back. So you're also, again, all it's about is preventing explosive plays, whether it's on the ground, if you can create that with the front or with 1 extra safety helping in there. And really, it's still 7 in the box. It's a base look, just different than how you would think. And then in preventing explosive pass plays, for the most part, there were 2 big ones in this game, but happens. You give up 2 in a whole game. It's not that bad, right? So I think you're right. Neal playing that middle position, that's kind of like, it's a tweener. It's like if there was something else we could call that position between a linebacker and a safety, that's kind of what Marcus Neal does. It's kind of what Caleb Downs did for Jim Knowles last year. Jim Knowles is a big proponent of this kind of defense too, and that's why it was so successful in the playoffs, right? With Hancock and then Ransom and then Downs in the middle of it all. But this is definitely it's just become a bad matchup for Kansas State. It's so creative. They stun all over the place. You've got athletes flying all over the place. Iowa State has a ton of team speed on defense. That this was the story. They were able to get out ahead. They were able to make Kansas State play uncomfortable football, and that's where it went from there. And I think offensive, we haven't mentioned Iowa State's offense at all. They just didn't make the back-breaking mistakes, right?
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second.
It wasn't great. I mean, there was drop balls. Rocco Becht, I believe, only completed 50% of his passes. The conditions were ugly, but I do like that in an ugly game like this, you saw there was times with 3-4 tight ends on the field. They knew what kind of game they had to play. It was going to be dirty, and Iowa State, for as much as they're smaller and athletic and 3-3 and all that, they're perfectly fine playing those types of games too.
So my stats to those stories, so really the story of the game is a run defense in both of our opinion. But also, Iowa State was very opportunistic in this game too, while Kansas State did not come up big in big spots. On fourth down in this game, Iowa State converted 100% of their fourth down attempts, 3 for 3. Kansas State was 1 for 4 on fourth down. Rocco Becht was money on fourth down in this game. He converted a couple 4th and 1s with his legs, and then really the game-sealing play completed a pass to Carson Hansen on 4th and 3 to ice the game with 2 minutes and 25 seconds left on the 16-yard line when many people thought Matt Campbell might kick a field goal, go up by 6, and then give the ball back to a red-hot Avery Johnson. He said, no, we're going to end this game right here, right now. So shout out to Matt Campbell for making that call right there. Plus, also, I want to point this out, a 33-yard kick on that field is not guaranteed.
Right hash.
So I really I think that was a great call by Matt Campbell. So shout out to him, and also Rocco Becht was fantastic. And then Kansas State, too many missed opportunities on fourth down. 4th and 1 on the 7-yard line in the second quarter, and Joe Jackson was stuffed on the 7. 4th and 9 on the 33-yard line in the third quarter. Avery Johnson scrambled out to his left and made a really good throw, but it was dropped by his receiver. And then on 4th and 1 on their own 30 in the fourth quarter, Avery Johnson ran the ball. It looked like he might have gotten the first down, but the refs ruled him short, and they turned it over on downs again. So again, 1 for 4 for Kansas State on fourth down in this game. One of them on the 7-yard line, one of them on the 33-yard line too, and then one on your own 30. Like there's a lot of points on the board you're leaving for Kansas State, and what was ultimately a 3-point ball game as well. And a back and forth game like this one that we had in Ireland, those critical fourth down plays mean the world in this kind of game, and really it can make a massive difference not only for who wins this game, but who makes the Big 12 title game in December, too.
This sets the tone, and I really like Matt Campbell. You mentioned that last fourth down call, 4th and 3. Absolutely the right call. Actually reminded me a lot of, there was a game, Lions-Packers last year when Dan Campbell made a similar call, handed the ball off, and got it. He was like, listen, I don't know if I can make a stop. We're going to try to get these 2-3 yards. It was, and the whole sequence of it, too, absolutely loved it. They came out for it at first. They ran a motion. They got to see what Kansas State was in. They were in man-to-man coverage. Called the timeout. Came out in a little bit different look. Same thing, though. Got a motion, confirmed man-to-man coverage, knew they had Hansen isolated on a linebacker. And in our grading, it's kind of a hidden play because we give Becht a neutral throw. It's a swing route, whatever it is. But it's really just the right thing to do in that moment. You've got Carson Hansen on a linebacker in open space against a team that's not that great in man-to-man coverage, and they got burned on it the handful of times they were in it in this game. Just a brilliant sequence, not just the one and the play call itself, but the play before the timeout when they had lined up and gotten the look that they wanted, and then confirmed the same look and went, okay, boom, it's there. Just toss it out there, and he's going to make a play. Just everything about that sequence, situational football, and it's, again, that's how you win these close games. It's situational football. It's fourth down. It's timeout sequencing and play calls and things like that. Just getting a read and getting the next look, knowing they wouldn't change it, especially in a week 0, your first game of the year. Just brilliant stuff, brilliant coaching from the Iowa State coaching staff from front to back in this game, working through the adversity. Because there were fumbles.
Yep.
There were drops in this game. There was a lot of ugly. The field was slippery, everything about it, but they just managed their way through the situation so well. And again, the overarching thing with the entire game is they made Kansas State try to win a game in ways that they don't want to win.
Yes.
It's absolutely, if Kansas State needs Avery Johnson to throw for 300 yards to win, they're not going to win.
Yeah.
And Avery Johnson's a good football player, but this is a team that's based in its run game. And especially without Dylan Edwards, and who knows where the ankle injury's going from there. He was seen in a boot after the game. They need somebody to step up in this backfield too, because they're Avery Johnson and their backs, Joe Jackson and the other back that got a handful of carries too. 25 carries for 83 yards is not going to do it in any week for Kansas State, especially in Big 12 play.
And that's counting Jace Brown handoffs, too. They had 54 yards from the running backs in this game.
Exactly. Jace Brown had 30. Jace Brown had the longest. He had the only carry longer than 11 yards in this game.
Devin Rice is the running back.
Thank you, Devin Rice. I just slip all the names we go through. But, exactly. But, again, this has been a theme against Iowa State. So they got a couple weeks here before Big 12 play to get back in the run game. Look, and here's the other thing for Kansas State, too. They got to come back, fly back from Ireland. They're playing this week.
Yep.
They're playing Army this week. And if you're gassed out and jet lagged from a game in Ireland, especially emotionally that you just lost, a tight game and all that, you got to come back and play Army. Obviously, they should be favored. I would expect Kansas State to win that game, but that's not a team I'm trying to play tired and jet lagged and coming off an emotional loss. That Kansas State's going to need to bounce back quick here, or you just don't want things to get off the rails off of one big loss.
The only note I have on the 4th and 3 call that Iowa State converted to win the game was Carson Hansen not score on that play. And for those who bet the over, that sucked because that would have cashed the over.
I told you and Eli both to take the under. I told you.
Yeah, but don't act like you were like, oh, that was the easiest call of the week. Like, if literally he scored, it was an inch away from cashing the over.
A win is a win. And also, let's just throw this out there. And also, I was screaming for it as we were watching it. Take 3 knees. That's the right decision. Don't run a play. No reason to.
Don't Mara Cristobal it. Yeah.
Don't pull Miami Georgia Tech on us. Take 3 knees. Get on with your day.
That kind of bet, and this just sets the tone for the entire year.
I never lost faith. That's really what it was. I never lost faith in the under.
Because I remember at the end of the first half, it was 7-7 at the end of the first half, and I was like, oh, the under is over. Like, I already lost. And then all of a sudden, both teams caught fire in the second half. I was like, wait, we have a shot here. And then Carson Hansen, I thought, scored.
You had no shot.
And then
I never lost faith in the under.
They reviewed it, and he was literally like inches short of scoring. So I would have cashed the over. It sucks.
That's gambling. That's
sets the tone for me for the year, unfortunately. But real quick before we wrap up here, wide open conference in the Big 12. How does this game between 2 of the 3 highest ranked teams in the Big 12, does this change your opinion? Because I know neither of us had Iowa State or Kansas State in our title game for the Big 12, but how does this kind of change your opinions on both these teams?
No, it doesn't change my opinion a whole lot. These are the 2 teams that we figured we were getting. We figured we were going to get a tight game. They're both pretty good on defense. It's the exact questions I had about Kansas State. Is that can they win those 2 or 3 games a year when they were uncomfortable? 0-1 there. Iowa State, they got some things to work on offensively.
Yeah.
I still think that. I mean, they scored 24 in this game. They grinded it out. It was really, it was really. It was ugly both ways. This was an ugly football game. Yeah. Let's be honest. So I think Iowa State, there's still some things to figure out at receiver. They had some drop passes, but this was a game where the defense had to win it for them. They had to be the more physical team. I thought they got good, solid production out of Carson Hansen and Abu Sama. I think they're going to need more of that throughout the year to balance this offense out a little bit more. But no, I don't think a whole lot different of these 2 teams. We got the close game we thought we would. There's still obviously contenders in the Big 12. Kansas State obviously has less margin for error now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I don't think either of those teams last year that made the Big 12 title game had 3 losses, right? Not in the Big 12.
No.
So, I mean, that to me is the magic number, is that if you get to 3 conference losses and K-State already has 1, then it gets a little bit tougher. So I think Iowa State, it's great for them to get a leg up, obviously on a big rival and a team that could factor into a tiebreaker situation eventually. But I don't think substantially different after this game about either of these 2 than I did going in.
In fact, I agree with you. It's kind of confirmed a lot of our thoughts on this team. My storyline for Iowa State going into the game was who's going to step up at receiver without Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. Iowa State's leading receiver, Brett Eskildson, had 3 catches for 46 yards and a touchdown. So the leading receiver had 46 yards. It was really a committee approach in that receiving core for Iowa State. They're still kind of figuring out who the top weapon is going to be in that receiving core this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And is it? I don't think it's week 1. I think Iowa State, I think they have to go back and play South Dakota next week, and then they get Iowa right after that. So, I mean, I am going to need to see their passing game show a little.
It is week 1. They play South Dakota this week.
Yeah, so South Dakota, and then they play Iowa after that. By the time the Iowa game comes around, I think we're going to need to see their passing game develop, especially you'd like to see it develop this week in South Dakota. The young receiving core, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about. But a couple weeks from now, and they're not getting a bye week until week 4. And both these teams coming back from Ireland. So Matt Campbell's talked about how difficult this early stretch could be for them, especially that Iowa game. We're certainly previewing that game, and it's going to be that's a game, especially against Iowa's secondary and Phil Parker and all that. You got to be balanced. You're gonna have to find ways to throw the football. Don't force it. Last year they won on a 60-yard field goal. We know that's going to be a real fun game too.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, shout out to Rocco Beck because he did grade out pretty well, even though he doesn't have a clear-cut number 1 or even number 2 option yet in that offense. But yeah, they got to figure out their receiving core right now. Just who's going to step up in that receiving core and be the top guys for them this year. Will it be Ben Bramer, who I really liked a couple of years ago at tight end? Will it be Brett Eskildson, Dominic Overby too? Got to figure it out in that Iowa State receiving core right now. But they start off the year 1-0 with a massive victory over Kansas State. I want to remind you guys, tomorrow at 1 p.m., we will be going live with our full Week 1 preview. All 11 games between Power 4 teams we will be previewing, giving the matchups to know, the storylines to know, and, of course, predictions for all 11 of those games, and giving our upset picks of the week as well. Again, tomorrow live at 1 p.m. on this channel will be our full Week 1 preview. For our producers back there, for Dalton Wasserman, we'll see you guys tomorrow for our full Week 1 preview of the 2025 season. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.